Hi, this is Kirby Summers, and I welcome you to the Epstein Project podcast. Today is March 18th. It's Thursday, 2021, and I'm going to be discussing the update to the Ghislaine Maxwell case. Um, what we've heard in the last couple of days is that Ghislaine Maxwell's siblings have taken to the airwaves and have given interviews. And as I suspected, I knew they were up to something. And what they have been doing is, listen to us and don't pay attention to what's happening in court. So what's been happening in court is that Ghislaine Maxwell's attorneys have filed with the court a request that the judge dismiss all of the counts against Ghislaine Maxwell, so that at the present time, in addition to the request that she be granted an opportunity to present to the court that she be released on bail, they are concurrently trying to get her to be just given a get out of jail card, because they want all of the charges to be dropped against her. Okay, so what I'm going to review what the charges are, and I'm going to try to summarize the latest developments that have been submitted to the court by her very well paid and very expensive attorneys that have done work in the past for criminals like El Chapo and and the CIA. In any event, before I get started, once again, I want to thank you for your help in my work by becoming members of my Epstein Project newsletter, by buying my books, making contributions, becoming Patreons, and pretty much, helping me stay on this case. So I'm gonna try to get this done and hope that I don't lose you. So stay tuned. Um, all right. So when Ghislaine Maxwell was initially arrested on July the 2nd of last year, what she was being charged with is not even rape, which we have heard from the victims was part of what she did. It wasn't just that Epstein raped these girls and women, and even some boys and men. It was that, and not just that they were passed around to other powerful people for their sexual enjoyment. So she wasn't charged with any of that. What she was charged for is that, and again, and I'm just going to step back and say, she was only charged for having something to do with 3 of possibly thousands of victims. Just 3 victims, and from the years of 1994 through 1997. So if you're aware of Virginia Giuffre, the crimes against her happened, I believe, between the years of 1999 and 2001, if I'm not mistaken, or 2000 to 2002. But so that these crimes don't even include Virginia, who is the most outspoken victim and who has the ties with the names that we have heard, like Prince Andrew, Leslie Wexner, Jean-Luc Brunel, who can verify and who has named Eva and Glenn Dubin. Those are not household names. So how does a 16, 17, 18-year-old girl know about names like Glenn Dubin if she weren't telling the truth? All right, so the charges, the overview on the court record states that from at least in or about 1994 up to and including at least 1997, Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and contributed to Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, other things, helping Epstein to recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims known to Maxwell and Epstein to be under the age of 18. The victims were as young as 14 years old when they were groomed and abused by Maxwell and Epstein, both of whom knew that certain victims were in fact under the age of 18. As part and in furtherance of their scheme to abuse minor victims, Ghislaine Maxwell, the defendant, and Jeffrey Epstein enticed and caused minor victims to travel to Epstein's residences in different states, which Maxwell knew and intended would result in their grooming for and subjection to sexual abuse. Moreover, in an effort to conceal her crimes, Maxwell repeatedly lied when questioned about her conduct, including in relation to some of minor victims described herein when providing testimony under oath in 2016. Okay, so it goes on to say that, Ghislaine Maxwell had a personal and professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, was among his closest associates. It claims that Maxwell was in an intimate relationship with Epstein, was paid by Epstein to manage his various properties, and that over the course of their relationship, Maxwell and Epstein were photographed together. Okay, so it goes on to explain that some of the ways that Ghislaine got the victims was that she first attempted to befriend some of Epstein's minor victims prior to their abuse, including by asking the victims about their lives, their schools, their families. Maxwell and Epstein would spend time building friendships with minor victims. For example, taking them to the movies or taking them shopping. Some of the outings would include Maxwell and Epstein spending time together with a victim, and some would involve Maxwell or Epstein spending time alone. And having developed a rapport with a victim, Maxwell would try to normalize the sexual abuse for a minor victim by discussing sexual topics, undressing in front of the victim, being present when minor victims were being undressed, and or being present for the sex acts involving the minor victim and Epstein. It goes on to say that Maxwell's presence during minor victims' interactions with Epstein, including interactions where the minor victim was undressed or that involved sex acts with Epstein, helped put the victims at ease because an adult woman was present. For example, in some instances, Maxwell would massage Epstein in front of a minor victim. In other cases, Maxwell encouraged minor victims to provide massages to Epstein, including sexualized massages, during which a victim would be partially nude. Okay, so, I was very suspicious when I started to see that the siblings of Ghislaine Maxwell had suddenly decided to forget their PR people that they've hired, because obviously their Free Ghislaine campaign went nowhere, and just decided to just conduct interviews like, oh, we're just her siblings and we're concerned about our sister because the conditions in jail are horrible and please release her. And I'm like, well, why is that happening? It's counterintuitive. Um, that doesn't necessarily happen ever when someone is awaiting trial, because anything that can be said about her, a, a judge can use that, the prosecution can use that against her in the trial. And so I'm thinking, I don't really get what this is. This cannot be. I never look at, by the way, I just never look at something at face value, because nothing is ever the way it appears on face value, and certainly not with the Maxwell family. If you know anything about Ghislaine Maxwell, you know that she's lied. We've looked at her testimony at her when she was deposed, and everything seemed to be a joke with her. Everything seemed to be something that she could lie to, and she just felt completely above the law. Same thing with her father, Robert Maxwell. So I'm thinking, her siblings, while we haven't really interacted with them or know them that well, many of us have researched them, and really the apple never falls far from the tree. So that I just thought, there's something else going on. And sure enough, there has been something else going on. A letter was sent to Judge Nathan on the 15th by Maxwell's main attorneys. So that would be Christian Everdale. And if you've not seen my thread on Twitter about Christian Everdale, I suggest you pull that up, because that'll keep you scratching your head for a little while. So the letter that he sent basically said that they just want to, they want to, they're submitting a motion to dismiss the indictment, to dismiss counts 1 through 4, as they are, quote, time barred, meaning that the statute of limitations for bringing this to the court is gone. They want to then have the court dismiss counts 5 and 6. It's everything is so that they could just dismiss everything. So essentially what they're doing is they're trying every single thing to get Ghislaine Maxwell out of jail. And I'll tell you why. My take on it is Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were not acting as Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. They were essentially working for someone other than themselves at the behest of one or more countries. They were essentially using these children and young women in a criminal, international sex trafficking operation to gather intelligence, to gather blackmail material, so that they can move chess pieces on the board which represented heads of other countries, the men who run the United States, so that they could pretty much set the world stage according to the wants and needs of who their boss was. It's getting very clear to understand who their boss was when you learn the connections of Leslie Wexner and you learn the connections of Robert Maxwell, and you see what they've done behind the scenes to further the cause of the state of Israel. The Mossad and the CIA and MI6 are pretty much the same thing. They even share the same intelligence gathering um, uh, device, if you will. And they do this for time-saving purposes because they work together. So those of you who have perhaps become aware of Robert Maxwell's role in the mid-1980s with Inslaw's promise, the theft of our nuclear secrets, after he was able to bribe Senator John Tower and get access to Ronald Reagan's White House, and through John Tower get access to Sandia Laboratories, where our nuclear secrets are, and he sold them a compromised version of the promised software with a backdoor that allowed Israel and other countries to pretty much steal our nuclear secrets. He did that with the acknowledgement of the United States. Robert Maxwell had befriended several presidents, um, and he was gone. He went unpunished. He did it with the nod, a wink, and an approval of the United States. How did that happen? The more I research, the more I'm convinced it wasn't just because the United States was embarrassed, which is what I was told by one of my very top sources, whose name I won't reveal because he has been part of this story for, I'd say, 4 decades, perhaps more. And he thought that the United States had allowed Robert Maxwell and others to walk away with secrets that belonged to the United States and that are meant to keep all of us that live in the United States safe, because perhaps they were embarrassed that Israel had managed to do this. Well, I'm beginning to think that it had more to do with the blackmail information that Israel has managed to obtain by the use of an organization like the one that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell operated. So I think it has more to do with, oh, well, you're going to allow us to do this. Because if you don't, guess what? I have information and I have photographs and I have a secret tape of you having sex with a minor. And if you don't do X, Y, and Z, well, then guess what? We're going to make this public. And what this can be compared to is how J. Edgar Hoover ran the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover never outed the mafia. Never outed the mafia. Why? Because they had a photograph or many photographs of him with his lover, Clive Tolson, his number 2 guy at the FBI, and other photos that were taken with the help of Roy Cohn, who was one of the many men who had other child trafficking uh, blackmail rings. Cohn was a friend of Barbara Walters. In fact, Barbara Walters was his beard. And when I say the word beard, it means that she presented herself as his date when he needed to go to a function because he was gay and closeted. And Barbara Walters is part of this little group of trusted insiders. And, just look for my tweet on Barbara Walters if you want some more information on that. In any event, so this is what's happening. They have submitted a request to the court that all charges be dropped, in addition to which they acknowledge that some information has to be redacted. And so that's where we're at. However, it should be noted, so we should not, just give up hope entirely. It should be noted that the last time that Ghislaine Maxwell requested bail, which I believe was in December, she wanted to be home with her new husband and her stepchildren. Sorry, it's hard for me to imagine Ghislaine as having a normal life. In time for Christmas, that basically the judge just ignored her appeal and ignored the whole thing entirely. The judge to date has ignored the third request as well, so that Christian Everson and Bobby Steinem, they can continue to bombard Judge Nathan with motion after motion requesting that Ghislaine be sent home because she's innocent, and this falls outside of the statute of limitations, and or this doesn't apply, and or she's having a horrible time in jail, and before and she's losing her hair and all kinds of ridiculous things. So they can do that, but ultimately this is such a very big case. It's become big because you have become really interested in this case, so that it has been written about, and while it has not been written about, in my opinion, properly, meaning that the spy case at the heart of the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell child trafficking crimes have not been exposed by mainstream media. Ghislaine Maxwell now is a name that is known all over the world because other media outlets have been talking about it, whether they speak favorably about her, as in the case of the son who has given Ian Maxwell a platform to discuss how wonderful his sister is, or others who have been a little bit more forthcoming with the fact that she was indeed involved with Jeffrey Epstein, and have presented the side of the victim's story, which, come on, why would they lie about this woman who is the daughter of one of the largest fraudsters in history? So again, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I do not believe Judge Nathan is going to allow Ghislaine Maxwell to leave jail. I think that these motions are just it's just noise. It's meant to distract you, tire you out about this case. Well, you know what? It's doing the opposite. It's making us much more interested in following the case. Many of you had no idea about court documents, and now many of you are very savvy about court documents. You know how to find the most recent information, and you're much more aware of the process of a case than you were before Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. So I think that their strategy is definitely going to backfire. And, bravo, bravo, bravo. The only people that are going to make any money here are the attorneys. And I guess Ghislaine's husband, who might stay with the money that she somehow was able to transfer to him while she is in jail. In any event, I'd love to hear your comments about what's going on. And wow, the way that they've tried to, three-card Monty us with fake news, like literally fake news. Gosh, in any event, again, this is Kirby Summers for the Epstein Project podcast. Please remember to like this video, follow me on Twitter, and I will keep you posted as always. Okay, have a good day. Bye.